Hello, chess family. It's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're going to be taking a look at another installment of Instructive Chess Miniatures. And this one, we're going to be taking a look at the double bishop sacrifice, one of my favorite concepts whenever you're attacking on the king side. Here, we're going to see black build up a very nice attack, and white fails to see the idea and falls for it greatly. Let's see how it's done. In this game, it's Krylov versus Furman, 1949, well after the very famous time, at least I think. Although it was played before, one of the first times it became very famous was whenever Lasker plays it. All right, let's go and take a look. Here we start off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. We got ourselves a Ruy Lopez here. Pawn to a6, Morphy's defense, bishop to a4, knight f6 attacks the pawn, and queen to e2. The wormhole attack here for white. And well, white does okay in these lines. I wouldn't say it's the best for white to be playing this, but it definitely is a way to play. And black definitely should know how to play this. And the game continues normally. Pawn goes to b5 here, bishop goes to b3, and bishop goes to e7. So everything's pretty much normal at this point. Pawn to a4, pawn to b4. Of course, the idea here being if pawn is trying to take on b5 and you got a pin over here, so the pawn simply just pushes forward. And this is also good because it's going to be stopping the knight to go to c3. Most of the time, the pawn will go to c3 and then we'll build up for d4 in our Ruy Lopez for white. Bishop goes to d5, and this is actually the mistake of the game here. Bishop d5 has been played, but at this point, now black is going to get an advantage here. Can you find the idea here? White did this because, well, it looks like it's a nice little threat. We're threatening to take the knight here, or maybe just keep it there because knight takes e5, and the pin is on the rook right here. Well, black found a nice little refutation line. Remember, in the opening, what we're trying to do is get our pieces out and castle as soon as possible. So, what do we do here? Again, I do encourage you to push pause here. Try to find the best continuation. If not, enjoy the show. Here we go. Here, we're going to go ahead and lead with our development. So we go ahead and play. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5. Something white probably didn't consider because they were thinking, well, we'll just win the pawn here. Well, here, black goes ahead and plays knight to d4. And, well, we're threatening the queen. We're threatening this pawn on c2 check. So, knight takes d4, e takes d4. It looks like these pawns are quite weak right here. But, well, white's just not ready yet. Look at all the pieces asleep over here. And black is actually the one leading in development. Black already has a -1 advantage, saying black is already up a pawn. Even though black can lose a pawn here, maybe he'd be up an extra pawn here. All right, the game continues. Castles here. Castles, of course. And then white got a little too greedy here and plays queen to c4. Now, the question here is, can you find the best move here for black? I really love this move. It's one of those moves that you calculate, and it may seem weird, but it's actually going to give you an advantage because, well, we're looking at potential of the activity of your pieces, not just material. Remember, whenever you get to the higher level of thinking, you're not just thinking one move at a time, but you have full concepts and ideas that you're trying to implement or use in your games. All right, hopefully you were looking at this for a little while, trying to figure out the move. What do you play here? Well, you want to try and hold on to everything, right? You don't want the d4 pawn to hang, so you find this move, a pawn to c5. And this is a very beautiful move because, well, if they don't take with en passant, as happens in the game, well, then you just get this beautiful pawn center. Now, the reason why this pawn c5 move is better than this bishop f6 move, they'll just take on b4, right? So c5 is really the only way to try and hold on to everything. But wait a second. After pawn takes, doesn't queen just take? It does, but again, look at the potential in this position. This knight can't even get out anywhere. This bishop can't get out anywhere. This rook can't get out anywhere. This queen is developed way too early. And now, well, we're just going to play simple chess moves here and keep getting an advantage. One other key note I want to say is that there's no knight on f3. Why is that important? The knights on f3 or a knight on f6 is going to be defending the weak pawns, right? We're going to see how this really just ends the game really fast. Here, rook a7 was played, a very nice move, moving the rook out of the way of the queen's attack, and the idea is probably going to be rook to c7 here to attack the backwards pawn on c2. Of course, white saw this and plays queen to f3. Here, a nice move order. What would you play here as black? Well, hopefully you didn't play bishop b7 right away. Don't get me wrong, bishop b7 is the move here, but first, let's get our rook over here to c7 before we block it off. After bishop b7, yes, we do get the tempo, but then the rook is blocked. So, simple chess. Rook goes to c7, getting a tempo off the c2 pawn. Here, white just goes ahead and plays pawn to d3. You could play something like queen to d1, but I guess, I mean, hopefully looking at this, you'll realize that this is just a terrible idea. I mean, you basically have brought your queen all the way back, and the only thing you've really achieved here is a castled king and a pawn on a4. Not something that you would brag about here, right? And so, well, white just decides, you know what, I got to give some material back. I got to get my pieces out, so pawn d3 gets played. Don't be a pawn grabber here. Of course, you could take the pawn on c2 here. Let's try to aim for more. Remember, Lasker saying, when you see a good move, look for a better one. Here we go. Bishop to b7 gets played. A tempo off the queen. Queen goes to d1 now, saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and defend the c2 pawn. And to be honest, that's probably one of the better moves here. If you're going to suffer in a chess position like this, you might as well be up material, right? If you're suffering and you're down in material too, then that's just an easily lost game. Against other players, you might get lucky and they might make a mistake, and then you actually have that extra material to fall back on, and you can actually win the chess games. With that being said, black was in no nice mood today, right? And black goes ahead and plays bishop to d6, and you can already see the idea here. Look at these beautiful bishops just aimed at this king side over here. All right, well, white's in a hurry to try and get the game going. Knight d2 was played. Let's keep developing our pieces. Rook to e8 right here. All these pieces are looking nice and beautiful. They're all set up, ready to go. Knight c4 gets played, and this was the blunder that black was hoping for. Of course, maybe something like knight to e4 should get played. Maybe even something like knight to f3. Again, black will still have the advantage, but knight c4 goes the wrong way. We need to defend this king, and, well, it's called the double bishop sacrifice for a reason. Black to move. I highly encourage you to push pause and see if you can figure out the next moves coming. If you're not calculating at least 5 to 10 moves ahead, you didn't count. You got to calculate accurately. What's the move here? Hopefully you found the first move. Bishop takes h2 check. King takes h2. What do you play now? Not bishop takes right away. Here we bring the queen in with a nice tempo and check. King goes back, and now we play the bishop takes g2. And this is a beautiful move because it's on tempo. Notice that they really have no choice but to take here. Everything else will just be losing. If you try to move the rook anywhere, well, it's just going to be checkmate and 1 over here on h1. What about if we play pawn to f3? Do you see the move here? There's quite a few moves here that you can play to get a good advantage. Queen g3 is a good move. Although, you know what? Queen g3 would not work out too well here because white would have this move bishop f4. Black is still winning here, but this does keep the game going here. But other checkmating ideas after this pawn f3 move. It says here bishop h3 with the idea of queen to g3 check will lead to mate. And also just c to e7 taking the e file will also lead to a mate here. My gosh, there's like 4 or 5 different checkmates here already. And that's if you play the only moves with computer. All right, well, king takes on g2 here. What do you do now? We need Capablanca's rook. What's Capablanca's rook? Oh, you simply put the rook on top of the pawns where they start at. So you're going to put a rook on top for the 6th rank so it can slide around. Capablanca's rook. So, king takes g2, rook goes to c6, and yeah, there's really just no good way to stop. This rook's going to be going to g6 check, f6, f6, h6. It's game over here. White tried to get a defending piece over here because rook g6 check was just so strong with bishop to f4. Apparently the best thing to do is just play queen f3, rook g6 check, queen g3 here. Not a move that you want to play. And here you wouldn't even take right away. You'd play something like rook e2, threatening queen takes g3 for check, for a quick checkmate in 2. All right, so what would happen now? Well, in the game, bishop f4 got played. Free money, might as well take it. If you play rook g6 check right away, the bishop will come back to defend. So queen takes on f4, rook h1. Nice idea here. If you do play rook g6 check, now the king will try to run to f1, and maybe white can hide their king here. Very nice and precise move to be played here. Black to move. Can you find it? Oh, I love this move. It's such a simple move, and it's one of those things that you're provoking weaknesses. Even though your opponent can see the threat, they just can't stop it. By defending, they will actually stop themselves from being able to defend later threats. What's the move here? The simple rook to f6 threatening. Queen takes on f2 for a checkmating idea. All right, well, how do you defend? Rook h2. Wait a second. Can't we just bring our pieces over to defend? Unfortunately, any way you try to defend this pawn, it's just going to be bad. Can we go something like queen to d2 here? Oof, you just got checkmated in 4 moves. Queen to f3 check. Ugh, I guess we'll go king g1. Rook g6 check. King h2. And queen to g2 for checkmate. Ugh. All right. Can the queen go anywhere else? What about over here to f1? Well, you just cut yourself off. Now the king does not have the escape square for f1, so the game ends pretty quickly here with queen g6 check. It doesn't matter where you move it. We got a little ladder mate right here. Okay, can we go queen to g1 here, allowing the king to go to f1 this time? Again, you're just getting checkmated again. Queen g4 check, king f1. Queen e2 check, king g2. And then again another ladder mate, or a rolling rook's checkmate. Rook g6 check, king h3, queen h5 checkmate. Ugh, terrible, terrible, terrible. So with that in mind, white went ahead and just tried to play this move, rook to h2. All right, final checkmating idea. Can you find it? Black to move and force checkmate in 5. All right, hopefully you found it. What do you play here? Hopefully you didn't play queen takes f2 check, as this will let white back in the game. Whole idea here is for white to run the king to h1, and I don't see a good check here next for black. Yeah, black still is in a decent position with 3 passed pawn if you go to this endgame, but why let your opponents live that long? Here, simple chess. What do you play? Of course, rook g6 check, and then, well, where would the king go to? I think the most challenging one will be putting the king to h1, but hopefully you can find the checkmate in 3 here. What's the idea? Well, we want to go queen f3 check and force mate, but this queen is defending. What do? Deflection time. Rook e1 check. Queen has to take. Then queen f3 check. Rook g2. Queen takes g2 checkmate. Last one we'll take a look at before this game is over. Here, after rook g6 check, what happens with king f1 here? Simple chess. We'll just take the rook, and again, there's no good way to escape because rook g1 is going to be checkmate, queen g1, queen g2. The king is just cut off all over. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. This is our double bishop sacrifice. I'll make sure I go over the Lasker game later. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you next time.